Welcome to Brains on Games. I'm Dr. Brian McDonald, and this episode we're going to be talking about a game that's not even released yet. The people over at Summit Drive Games sent me a copy of their new game that's set to come up on Kickstarter in the first week of August, a game called Fairy Unicorn Mermaid Princess Kitten. And that has been a really tough name for me to remember. Because it's a prototype, I don't have a box to show you, but if I'm the greatest video editor who's also a psychologist that you've ever met, then you'll see a box or a logo right up here. But it's possible that I'm not the best video editing psychologist of all time. So I'm not sure if I'll be able to do that or not, but fingers crossed. Fairy Unicorn Mermaid Princess Kitten is a card game, a set collecting card game that can be played with between 2 and 6 players. It's for kids aged 6 and up. Most of the games that we talk about are for kids who are older than that, but this one is for 6 and up, and it plays in about 15 minutes. Let's take a look at Fairy Unicorn Mermaid Princess Kitten. Here are the cards, and you can see, the style of the artwork is a good fit for the theme. It's possible that the artwork might change between now and the time that the game is released, but this is what we've got. And it looks just exactly like you would hope a game with that title would look. So you've got cards that are fairies, unicorn, mermaids, princesses, and kittens. And what you're trying to do is create sets that include a princess and some followers that have a matching symbol on the card. So this is a fairy princess, so you would need to pair her up with a fairy card in order to create a set that you could then use to score points. Okay, so we've got some points here on these different fairies. Now, what I think is interesting about this game as an introduction to set collecting kinds of games is that, okay, well, you've got these symbols, right? You can see them on the back of the cards here. There are 4 different suits, I guess you could say: fairies, unicorns, mermaids, and kittens. And then the crown for the princess is a wild card. Okay, and that's something that I think is a great thing to introduce to kids this young, because that starts to expand on the matching. So this is a game that requires you to match symbols on cards, and that visual matching exercise is complicated by the fact that you have this extra one that could represent anything. So you're doing maybe some perceptual reasoning, I think you could say. There's also that visual memory, because the fairy has a certain symbol, the unicorn has a certain symbol, and you're going to be trying to remember how to put those together. So here you've got a fairy and a wild card. So any other follower could go along with this fairy princess. Now, another thing that I like about this set collecting game is that there's a few different ways that you can get cards into your hand. You start the game with 7 cards, which might not be enough to give you a match. In this case, you could match this one, but she's not worth very many points. But another way that you can get cards, well, of course, you can draw from the draw pile. You can also steal a card from one of your opponents. So you can ask for a kitten or a fairy princess or a mermaid. And if you're sort of keeping track of the cards that the other people are picking up and putting down, you might be able to guess what cards they still have in their hand. Or you might be able to time things so that they've got a lot of cards in their hand and you're more likely to get the one that you want. Another way that you can get cards in this game is that you could discard a princess. So if you have a princess card that you don't need or that doesn't match up with anything that you have, you could discard it and then draw the number of cards that are equal to this number here on the top of the princess card. Okay? So you're doing that set collection, which is about matching symbols. That's a perceptual exercise and a bit of a visual memory exercise. You've got to be able to identify those matches. And I can tell you that very often it's hard, especially for young kids, to notice a match when it comes up. So I think this is a good thing for them to practice. Another interesting thing I think about this game in terms of the skills that it develops is that you've also got some reading here, but look what happens. Some of the cards are combinations of multiple suits. So here, it's not just a kitten, it's a combination of a kitten and a mermaid, a mer-kitten. Okay, so you see what's happening with the words. These are made-up words. They're made-up words, but they're combinations of the words on the other cards. So kids are going to be analyzing, breaking apart these syllables on the cards here and then putting them back together in different combinations in order to read. I mean, you can sound it out, of course, but you're going to, hopefully the kids will recognize that these words are made up of parts of the other words on the other cards. So there's a little bit of an extra reading exercise there, an exercise that involves visual analysis, okay? So you've got mer-kittens and you've got fairy-corns and kitty-corns, so any different combination can be found on here. Some of the princesses are also combined from other cards. So they've got the crown, but here you can get a fairy and a kitten card in addition to that wild card. Okay, so a fair kitty princess. So that's a combination of a fairy and a kitten. I think lots of younger kids would be interested in these kinds of combinations and the way that they combine the words. So the idea of the game, the basic game, is you're trying to collect sets. You can only score one set on your turn, which means that if you've got a bunch of cards, they're going to stay in your hand, that other people might be able to steal them. And you're trying to make sets that add up to 12 points. I mean, there are variations in the rules where you can play to a larger number of points or play to 12, but you have to have a special kind of a princess. Are you ready for this? I don't know if I have it in here. Here's a fair-made princess. Oh, the last one, I think, is the FUMPK, which is a combination of all of the cards. It's worth the most points, but you can see it's got every suit in the game that you would have to collect in order to score this card. So another way to make the game a little longer, more complicated, you can play to 12 points, but you can't win until you create a set that includes this card. And there's multiple copies of that card in the deck. The deck is, this is only a portion of it. Hang on here. The deck is huge, so there are a lot of cards there that you can choose from. So that gives you an idea of Fairy, Unicorn, Mermaid, Princess, Kitten, a set collecting card game that involves some visual memory. You're remembering the symbols and what characters they go along with. It involves some visual analysis too in terms of how you're putting those things together. And it involves some matching of different symbols. This is a game, like I said, that hasn't been released yet. It's going to pop up on Kickstarter early in August. August 4th is what they're shooting for, so you can look for it then. Summit Drive Games is the publisher of Fairy, Unicorn, Mermaid, Princess, Kitten, and so you can reach them at summitdrivegames.com. I just had to check my notes here. Summitdrivegames.com is their website. Of course, you can find me if you have questions or suggestions at brian@brainsongames.ca. Brainsongames.ca, of course, is the website where you can find all the previous episodes and future episodes. Brains on Games is the Twitter handle and the Instagram handle where you can find whenever anything new gets posted. And if you liked this video and you'd like to be notified when other videos pop up, you can head on over to YouTube and press that subscribe button. Hope you enjoyed this one, and hopefully we'll see you next time.